and welcome back to Valoranting. I do want to cuss. I personally think that is fucking bullshit. What can I do for you? What can I do for you? This is the best produced podcast I've ever been in. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Valoranting. This week I'm joined by Matt and Bach, who is standing and looking like an upset dad. He's got his little pillow, which normally people
have a
have
pillow with you on it.
Yeah, I was gonna.
This was a gift. I did not buy this for myself. This was from a talent manager who put his face on the other side.
Oh,
so
okay.
it was a nice little interest. I did not expect to get this at all.
That is very interesting. Normally, pillows with people on them are a little bit bigger, you know. So something to keep in mind. Matt,
I hide my Moses body pillow. I don't put it in the background. I put you can't really see that much. But no, I'm good. Waiting for first strike to kick off. Playing WoW until I can't really think anymore. This is gonna be a great week. I mean, if you just love Valorant and esports, it'll be really fun.
I think so too. It's first strike does kick off in the next couple of days here. In fact, on Thursday, and we'll be running through the weekend, culminating obviously in the first regional North American champion, the European champions of first strike, all these other things. So some more bragging rights, and then we have a little bit of a holdover before we kick off into 2021. So let us take a look now at the first strike regional finals, which are the marquee events coming up here in the next couple of days.
Yeah,
we have no sound for this one. Okay, that's my bad. Hey, listen, first strike is one of those things where if only I had been paying attention in the pre-show. As far as the hype is concerned, I think a lot of eyes are now falling onto North America. There's a lot of shakeups happening already. We'll talk about the roster moves. Matt, for you, what do you think that is going to be the result of first strike? Let's kind of go towards the end. What do you think is going to be? Is it going to be only bragging rights? Is it going to be best team in the region type of situation?
I think we already kind of have an idea who the best teams in each region are. I think you'll have a little bit of like a region reset after first strike in terms of like teams breaking up, new players coming in, some players that have been around since the beginning who didn't really kind of work out or prove, kind of like moving on or onto different teams. For me, this is just more of this is look and feel of like what Valorant esports is going to look like for the foreseeable future. That's what we kind of get out of first strike, right? We get the formats. What is it going to look like on broadcast? Everything kind of culminating in that, right? Like this is Riot's first actual like own run event for Valorant. So I think they kind of set the precedent and kind of everything else falls in line after this. So I'm excited to see how the show looks. I know everybody on the broadcast, how they do it remote. I think it'll be a really interesting, fun show. And I think that's kind of what you get out of this. The teams will always consistently change. You're going to have big shakeups after this, once we kind of get to like the yearly tour. And I think this is just more of like what to expect and what type of flavor or niche that Valorant esports is going to fill.
Well, Bach, looking at the, I guess what we have your unique insight, having been on the tournament organizer side. For those of you guys who don't know, Mark does spend time working with Nerd Street, as well as his on-air duties. Is it too soon to be having these first? And it's kind of a setup question, so you can dodge it if you want. But do you think that Riot kind of stepping in for this one and taking over this final event was expected? Is it a good sign, bad sign, or how do you feel about it personally?
I mean, I think we all expected Riot to step in eventually. We all knew that Riot was inevitably going to take the reins and take control of their own esports scene. That's what they would have done with other esports titles like League of Legends, so it makes perfect sense. I think it happened surprisingly quick, and I think part of that is because of the fact that things escalated rapidly with the game. Now, who's to say what this space would have even looked like if it weren't for COVID? Like, it's possible that Riot would have had control all along. We don't really know what their roadmap and their plans looked like pre-COVID. So the fact that they kind of were put into this position where they were forced to work with third-party party tournament organizers like us at Nerd Street kind of gave them an interesting way to build this sort of like a feeder system. I actually really like that. I think that's one thing that maybe League of Legends is lacking in is a proper feeder system that funnels talent upward. Um, I hope it continues. I think the model that they're building with First Strike, if they keep going in this general direction, it's promising for everyone. You know, like Riot has full control of the final product, but tournament organizers can come in and put their own spin on it and add some flavor from their broadcasts, which is why I like the way that they're going with First Strike. We don't really know entirely what the next couple of years are going to look like, but you can only assume that Riot is going to take more and more control.
I imagine so too, and that's a great call out with the with the COVID situation. Who knows where we would have been by now? Obviously, it kind of derailed everything. But there's so much to talk about when it comes to the control of Riot and how they kind of you know, obviously they have a vision for their product and they want to realize that, and there's no better way to do that than just to have full creative control over your broadcast. But there's a lot of esports, I guess, not, I don't want to say casualties when it comes to these decisions, but I would be remiss not to talk about OGN shutting down and the connection with Riot there. So OGN this week did shut down in Korea, and I think one of the big reasons about that is just the loss of product. You know, OGN did have access to Blizzard titles when it came to Overwatch, and they also had League of Legends early on, and having lost both of those big products, Matt, have kind of left not a lot of food on the table for what is a migration towards first party esports.
It's I think it's tough because what we've seen over the last few years, and I think like League of Legends really kind of started it, and I think like Overwatch, Call of Duty, I think you see Valorant now, and then I think like you kind of throw like Rainbow Six in there like as time goes on. It's like the evolution of like AAA games that are esports, and I think sometimes it gets lost of like how large the IP and like actual like brand of the game is, and like how important that is. Where then I think people kind of feel better about just bringing it in house and like kind of controlling everything themselves. It's a huge task to undertake, but I think when you're kind of like protecting the IPs and all of that surrounding just the general game, I think that's kind of where they feel the safest. And yeah, and I mean it does kind of hurt like the OGNs of the world, especially no, which is difficult to see because somebody who's like I started playing at like MLG Open events. I used to run Call of Duty events. So it is like I like those grassroots and like kind of when we were able to do them, the large like kind of hotel ballroom, and you get a bunch of like the TVs in there, and you get the setups, and like everybody's just gaming all weekend long. Like I love that whole vibe, but I think there's also kind of like a risk in that as well. So I think as like the games and the quality of game, like, and the marketability of the game is like leveled up in terms of like what we're offered in esports, I think it kind of changes the direction of how publishers and developers handle it.
I kind of feel, or I get the sense that esports are more and more falling under marketing and biz dev than their own pillar in some ways. Now this is a big tangent. Now obviously esports are probably primarily, in my opinion, a big advertisement for the game, because I know when I've back before I even was thinking of content creation or casting or anything, I remember watching the original Crusher 99 Overwatch League intro video and thinking about, I want to get in on this. Just
Yeah.
at that moment I was like, well, I'm kind of good at video games. Maybe I'll do that. Like that's kind of the seed that esports plants in people, and to have or not TOs, excuse me, first party organizers like Riot start to see the power. Well, obviously have realized the power in that, considering how large their other products are. To move towards using it as more of a advertising and business development tool rather than for the love of the competition, which is in this case, or in my opinion, just a nice bonus. What about you? What about you, Bach? What do you think?
Well, I think it's interesting too when you look, because a lot of games have failed at that model. A lot of games have tried to use like force esports as a marketing wing, and it never really panned out. Instead, they spent like tons of money trying to organize like early Twitch rivals esque influencer based competitions where they throw a ton of money on the prize pool table, and then like I look at a game. Was it Hyperscape? The BR with like
the
the
BR,
Twitch
yeah.
chat interaction. That could have been really cool. but it just didn't pan out. And there
It
are a
came
lot
out
of
right
games
after
just like
Warzone
that.
did, which
Yeah.
was incorrect.
tough.
Poor timing.
But like we
Yeah.
see that a lot. We see developers try to force a title as an esport, and then it doesn't pan out, and it actually ends up hurting the game like big time.
Well, of course. I mean, I guess I'm kind of more speaking, Matt, about, and maybe you have a response to what Bach has to say, but I think I think proving Valorant as an esport was the easy part.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's got to be just genuine esports interest in it, right? Like, I think
Right.
when you like to Buck's point, when you force competition in a game, that you need to give the game time to actually kind of coalesce and like have a community and have people that are interested. Like the esports portion, like you mentioned, Moses, like with the marketing aspect, is to keep people engaged, coming back to the game. Kind of you have some kind of commitment and tie to the game that brings you back. And also, I think we all kind of know watching like the highest level of competition makes you want to play
Oh
more.
yeah, I want to go
There,
be like Faker or whoever.
yeah, exactly. Every time I leave like an Overwatch league cast, like and we've seen like a sick game, like it just makes you want to play. I think that's kind of like when you know you have something, and the whole point of it then, right, is like the more esports you do, people watch, they want to play. Like it extends the lifespan of your game, right? Like look at League of Legends. I didn't really play a ton of League of Legends when it came out or whatnot. Whenever Worlds comes around, like I watch, I find myself like binging League of Legends for the next like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, because you watch the games and you're like, oh man, that looks fun. Like, and then you have
Yeah.
some friends who are watching. It's like, oh, we should hop on and play some. Like, it's the exact effect that they're looking for, right? Where it's like, I watch Valorant. Oh my god, that game looks sweet. I'm gonna see if my friends want to play and just jump in.
It's yeah, it's a very big draw, but I want to know primarily what the next year looks like, and obviously we have a lot of information. We covered that last week, but let's talk about First Strike. We should continue on First Strike, I should say. We also have the North American talent released, and I'm going to be so at this point we're all supposed to say like, hey, congratulations to Golden Boy, DDK, Riv, all of our friends in talent. But I want to say what we're all really thinking here on the broadcast, which is these guys. You know what? Like I could have easily jumped in. I'm just joking. No, of course we're all very happy. Even though albeit very jealous of all of our friends here. Some highlights, obviously, Dash coming in the host role. That's a separate topic that I don't think would be very great for this particular podcast, but obviously, you have Riven there as well. So not only are we seeing the first party organization, but also the talent, which I'm very happy to see because Ryan has some of the best talent out there. And our pal Van Silly, in his I imagine his Calvin Klein proposal shoot out somewhere. I'm not entirely sure where he was.
Veli took the day off to bathe in the money. Yeah, he said we reached out to him for the today, and
yeah,
he
he's like, I would do your shitty podcast.
He couldn't find his phone because it was just covered in money.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had lost it.
It was probably vibrating with all the adulation he was receiving on Twitter.
I think this is an awesome just mix and blend of like people who have done Valorant already, like some CS:GO, League of Legends. I love the addition of Jordan Fisher. I watch his streams all the time. He's just a fantastic human, and he was really passionate about Valorant. So I think the more kind of people you can get, like Jordan Fisher, who stream have a really positive attitude about Valorant, the esport, have a following already, and they're interested in like being a part of the broadcast. I think that's awesome for Valorant as a game.
What does Jordan Fisher do? I don't know anything about him.
Oh,
I was trying to figure this out.
Okay, so he's a streamer, but he's also like a singer, dancer. He's been in movies. He's extremely talented. He would make any of us make
good looking.
Yeah, and he's good looking. Yeah, he has everything that we don't have.
Now I know. If I have a reason to point to the reason I'm not on the broadcast or we're not on the broadcast is because we're not Jordan Fisher.
Yeah, no, he's every time I see him doing something, yeah, he's been on Broadway, I believe, as well. Like he's so talented, everything the guy does.
That guy too, then.
I love watching him. He's so great. I'm a big fan.
Oh, are you telling me that they didn't have space on the broadcast box for like a couple of 30-year-old bald white dudes?
Yeah,
like, this is
too much hair. Too
That's
much
what I'm
hair on
saying.
that broadcast. That's hairism at its finest. I'm
inclusivity.
not happy.
Inclusivity,
Yeah.
please. So here we have the schedule. We have the schedule I should say. So obviously it starts on Thursday. They have the preview show, powered by Nerd Street, by the way. So Bob, what's going on in the pre-show? You might as well tell us.
We got a couple of people coming in to just kind of talk about what happened throughout First Strike and kind of build some storylines moving into the tournament. So I think in the announcement it was Jacob Wolf, Hiko, Tailored. I'm trying to remember the full list. I actually have it in my notes here.
Jacob Wolf, I believe, is on there.
Rivington and DDK were the other two. That was the ones I couldn't remember. So it should be really good. Looking forward to like kind of diving into that show, and it really is just going to be like the appetizer for First Strike.
Yeah, absolutely. We do we have the talent for it? Just came out. Maybe you have it, Daniel, but we have EU as well. There is one familiar face on there. And if we don't have it, that's fine. So we have Mitch, Pansy was on there, Hypoc. Who else?
Yinsu Collins.
Yinsu. And is that everybody? Did I get everybody?
And then the G2
Lothar. Yeah.
Lothar.
You know what? I know Lothar personally. We worked at PUBG together, and I've met him a couple of different times. He is blessed. He's a blessed lad. He's out there being a good-looking Polish dude. He works for G2, which is exactly how he got this gig. I don't know what kind of bribe money he's paying to Riot. But just look at that motherfucker. Look how beautiful he is. And you have even Hypox looking at him like, bro, like, why do we have to be right next to each other? Like, why couldn't you couldn't have put me next to Mitch? Like, what's going on here? So obviously Pansy and Yinsu. Pansy taking a break from her CS casting to come to grace our presence, not on this podcast, but on the First Strike broadcast.
Which I reached out to her as well, but she had the same issue as Veli.
Right. Well, she doesn't respond to DMs on just regardless of the day. So I wouldn't feel too bad about that. She's very busy.
I think I'm excited for EU as well. I think I saw Shock say that it's going to be produced out of the LEC studio. So this will be, from what we know, maybe Korea as well. Not sure, but like this will be maybe one of, if not the only studio show that they're able to pull off.
Yeah, well, there's only 5 of them, and they all. I understand they all tested for COVID, and they're all negative, so they all get to hang out in person, which just pisses me right off. Imagine being able to hang out with people in esports. So here's the main broadcast schedule for EU as well. Starts on Thursday, runs through Sunday, just like everybody else. So it's going to be. I hope your veins are wide enough for all the Valorant action. So much Valorant this weekend happening. So the only person who I'm really concerned about is Sideshow, who has to watch every single game and review every single round in meticulous detail. So we also have a little bit of banter happening on Twitter as well, which I find very great because this is a great tweet.
Yeah.
So this is G2 Esports saying, "Hey, Valorant Esports, how much space in the cabinet should we make for the First Strike trophy?" And Valorant responded, "Just use the space you reserved for your World's trophy."
Banger.
Fucking owned. Oh, God.
Just wrecked.
And of course, rounding out the schedule, we have Korea as well. So the Korean schedule, shockingly, starts on Thursday, runs through Sunday. So you could actually watch Valorant for 24 hours a day, I'm pretty sure.
What I'm interested in is, so they're going with an approach of trying to like have like the channel 24 hours, right? Because you see like the end time here of Korea. They've only really given themselves like an hour buffer between each show. So if they run long, what happens? Like if Korea runs past 7 a.m., does Europe hold and not start at 8 a.m. PT? Like do they switch off from Korea to?
That sounds like a producer problem to me, Matt.
Huh?
Like a producer problem.
Yeah. It's definitely like a production issue, but I think they probably have an idea that like they can kind of push these matches through pretty quick, because giving yourself only an hour is not a lot of turnaround.
Yeah, and I mean it's. We also have the First Strike official broadcast. So we have Paper Thin, who is again another PUBG caster. Spent a lot of time, I believe, lives in Korea. And there's some friends of his as well. I believe these are all Korean-based casters.
Yep.
Yeah, love to see it. We got full English coverage of all the regions, which we haven't had till this stage, so it's great to see.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
just going to ask if
it's
we've actually had that yet. I think in general, for a lot of the stuff that's happening in Southeast Asia, we haven't really had much English coverage, have we?
nope.
Nope.
Oh.
Which is why I haven't watched a single minute of it. So at
Yeah,
least that's what I like to tell myself.
Wolf and Achilleos do the Overwatch League as well. They live in Seoul, so I believe it's all English speaking casters that live in Korea. So I
Do
don't, I
they
don't
have
believe
an
they're casting
England
together,
town?
but huh?
Do you think there's an England town in Korea? Like, we have Koreatown in various cities around the world.
No,
and
I don't believe so.
there's no England town, English
Nope.
town.
Little
they just
America.
Yeah, they
Little
just all
America?
live happily amongst each other. Yeah.
They're like they're like potted plants. Just every once in a while, like, hey, there's a white dude right there. So we have some roster moves as well. Unfortunately, starting with some sad news for Effie's, who was dropped from, or Effie, I should say, who was dropped
Yeah.
from, that's Effie's, from formerly of Gen G, now also formerly of NRG. So Effie's has kind of been moving around after having such a long term with his first team, now finding himself off of Energy as well. And that begs the question: what is going on with old Shanks? Because there's some questions about Shanks appearing on this roster as well. So there was like a little thing with Immortals. I believe this was him standing in for Shot Up in the
Yep.
in the previous term.
Right.
We'll hear it from him.
Are you still playing for Immortals? Well, shit. I don't know, bro. I'm on the roster for the first strike finals champ.
Okay. Well, I learned a couple of things. The first is that he streams shirtless. And
More power
might-
to him.
more shout. I mean, I would if it wasn't going to be a TOS. But as the old saying goes, who knows? We'll see what happens. But Matt, what is your insight on this?
So yeah, this is just Shanks kind of mentioning when he's on the Immortals roster for First Strike, because he did fill in for Shot Up. If you remember, I think we covered it like 2 or 3 weeks ago, where Shot Up got sick, I believe, maybe even had to go to the hospital during the tournament. They played a few rounds, I think, man down, and then they had Shanks come in and fill in. Then they ended up playing well and moving on from there. So I think that's just kind of him alluding to that, and maybe he's trialing for NRG. They do have that roster spot open. I think he'd be a good addition. He was. We know he can play at the top level already, right? So I don't think there's much of a risk in trying to bring him into a team like this.
So not long ago, Bach, we were talking about roster moves and the looming
ESIC.
Yes, the one, and the match fixing for Counter Strike. We were supposed to hear like results for this like weeks ago. What is happening?
That's a great question. I won't try to say too much because I used to work with a company directly affiliated with the people who run ESIC, but I will
NDA's
say
expired. Spill the beans.
Yeah. True. Communication was never golden, if I'm being honest. There was times when we had issues in the past. Some of it relates to players who were already mentioned on this broadcast that
Right.
we just never got responses from. So I was never thrilled with the way that was handled, and we already saw that with the coaching bug thing that went on in CS, and now
Right.
with this as well. They set a timeline and then they don't stick to that timeline. So they told us we would have more information about all these MDL match fixing investigations. All we got was that little tidbit from Australia, which I
Like
think was
it's
already well known about.
Yeah. The last we heard is that they were supposed to be concluding their I mean, I feel bad. I mean, maybe all these guys are in the clear now, which is great because you never
Yeah.
want to see people implicated in something that's essentially straight up cheating. So we'll see what happened with Shanks. There's some question marks there. Energy's roster is still a little bit malleable. They're making some changes. C9. Oh, go ahead, Bach. Yeah, go ahead.
One thing I want to say about Shanks and Effie's too, I don't think it's necessarily a slight against Effie's that he got pulled out of this roster. Energy needs an op player, like a really strong op, and that's not going to be Effie's. And they're also trying to figure out like what their agent composition is going to look like. I think that's what Shanks delivers, and that allows Sam to focus on like another duelist role. He can play as Reyna, or he can play as Raze. He could even play as a Phoenix. He could play more of a rifle heavy position and less of the op position because currently he's been playing Jet for that team. So I think this move is more about what's best for the team and not necessarily what a shortfall or a shortcoming of Effie's. And I think that Effie still has opportunities out there. I do think that this looming threat is hurting players like Shanks and Effie's and a few others whose names have been thrown in as speculated to be involved, like Calypso. So hopefully, like that gets resolved soon, because it kind of sucks to see these guys just dragged along, waiting for it to just come out and finally clear their names.
Yeah.
Or not.
Yeah, or not.
Or not. So yeah, I mean that's great insight. I guess for Effie's, he did mention in his tweet he's looking for more of an IGL role, but that's not set in stone. So Effie's will find himself somewhere. A guy with that much experience this at this stage of the game, there's always a team that's going to be looking for someone with that caliber of experience. Matt, let's talk about C9 parting ways with their head coach, James IRL, longtime coach in the CS scene, moving up to take this spot. Do you think that this is like we must? I like how they put a minus Chew in the update. I like that. Just like we're minus Chew plus James IRL. That's cool. So what do you think about? Is this C9 like we have to have at least one head roll for missing first strike?
This I think is part of a larger change that I think we all assume will happen with Cloud9. I think when you have a player of Tenz's caliber, you expect to at least be in the main event. For them not to make it there, I think they have to kind of be looking at everything associated with this team, top to bottom. So I think you kind of start with the coaching staff, and then you really don't know the players that are available yet, because we don't know what's going to happen at the main event, and what kind of roster changes like that spurs with some of those teams. So I think you kind of wait, maybe look at a few players you like, and then reassess after the main event. So
Yeah.
I think Cloud9 will definitely have a better idea of what their roster starts to look like, probably like later next week, right? Where you have first strike happen this week. We kind of get a little bit of a breath after it, and then I think you'll start to see teams like whether they decide to stay together or not.
Well, one thing I do want to say too, I feel like you could have seen this writing on the wall a long time ago.
Yep.
You have James, who coached for Cloud9's CS team, and then you have 5 CS players, some of whom played for Cloud9's CS team, and then you have a coach who comes from Overwatch. The dude was the odd man out. Like, let's be real. Unfortunately, the players were probably pushing for James to get bumped up a while ago. I can only imagine that they want to see him put in that position because they're comfortable with him. They know how to work with him. They know how he works. They know that he's very detail oriented. I've personally worked with James on broadcast. He did some analyst work. He'll always have a big notebook filled with like information on what's been happening in games, and he takes that with him every time the team was playing when he was a coach for Cloud9 and also for Ghost Gaming. So I kind of thought this was going to happen. I thought this one, yeah. Well, I mean, all the best coaches write things down, apparently.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, if you don't have a notebook or a clipboard, what are you doing? Like that's what I would love to know. So the question here, and I guess Matt kind of touched on this, is that next week, once first strike is settled, obviously we'll be congratulating the champions and you're talking about the power structures, but it's going to be an absolute bloodbath in the roster moves. Because there's all these big major tournaments always kind of show weaknesses or underline that things need to change in a very competitive landscape, especially early Valorant, where teams want a piece of that Sentinel's TSM pie. They will do what is necessary. So there's a couple of questions about roster moves that have yet to come to pass, specifically around Cloud9. And we were talking about this in the pre-show, which word on the street, rumblings, is Profi from Moon Raccoons potentially scrimming a little bit, testing the waters with C9 Blue, which makes a lot of sense because, as I've said 1,000 times, Profi, former pro PUBG player, played for Cloud9 for a long period of time.
It makes tons of sense for Cloud9, but like I mentioned, I think this is probably one of the players that they're going to trial. I assume, barring some other kind of like major occurrence, like a Sentinels bombing out and they like kind of get angry, like something like that, like the roster movement at the top level will kind of revolve around what Cloud9 decides to do and who they decide to grab from where, and you'll kind of see everything kind of be filled in outside of that. I think that's kind of where you'll see this thing go, whether it's next week, the week after, because you need the roster that you make once the World Tour starts to make it through. Because when you start earning some of these points, I believe the rules in the in kind of the tournament, or the kind of the structure for the whole year, is you need like most of your roster still intact to keep those points. So if you're a player like Tens, you're kind of looking around like, okay, well, I need to commit to at least you know, 2 of these other players for the entire year. Uh, you need to make sure you have those right people, right? Because you
Right.
don't want to be in a position if you're somebody like him where now you're looking around, you can't get anybody because nobody's going to blow up any teams, and you can't go anywhere because there's
Contracts.
yeah, because contracts. So you have to really make sure you get this roster right, and I think that goes across the board for all teams. Make sure you have the people committed for the whole year.
I want Tens to go like LeBron GM mode and just be like, I want this
The
player.
GM, yeah.
Go get it. Go get him or I'm out or something like that. You know, that would be obviously esports doesn't quite work that way, but Tens is that player right now. There is not a single team or other, well, maybe players that wouldn't be as great of a fit, but as far as teams are concerned, Tens is, you know, he's the golden ticket. You put him in any situation, I'm sure he'll be
Well,
successful.
I am a bit confused why some teams don't operate like that, to be honest with you. Because if you're Cloud9, uh, you know, Tens is one of the best players in the game. He's one of the most recognized players in the game. Uh, you kind of do whatever you can to build around him. Like if he's like, Let's do this," and it keeps him happy and it keeps him playing Valorant, and you know his brand continues to grow. Like that's great for Cloud9 overall, right?
Yep.
I mean, I've seen it a few times in Overwatch where I've kind of been confused, where you'll have a player who's like an MVP candidate, and the rest of the players will be like, you know, he's kind of hard to work with, and they get rid of the MVP guy. It's like, you know, you think about that in traditional sports sense. You have a player who's that good, who's like an MVP candidate. The role players are like, you know, we really don't like this guy, and then they get rid of the MVP. Like that would never happen, you know?
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
like it's just a little bit backwards like in esports, like where we kind of operate that way. But I think as time moves on and some of these players, their brands continue to grow and they become even more important to these organizations, you'll see it start to shift.
Yep, it's interesting to see. And Cloud9 has always had a bit of a question mark over top of them for how long it took them to build the roster. Obviously, not making it to First Strike was a big blow for them, but a lot of questions hanging in the air for Cloud9. Luminosity ended up dropping another player as well. Luminosity appears to be either rebuilding. Venerated did step down. It just seems like this squad, as it was built, did not have the mileage in them to stay together for the long term and find that success. How do we determine we wanted to say his name?
We'll just say KZ. Just KZ.
KZ. Yeah.
KZ's out of here. He's going somewhere else. So they're gonna keep trying to rebuild. Maybe they'll put Ninja or not Ninja, XQC. Get an XQC in there. You know,
There you go.
I could see them going after someone from Moon Raccoons. You know, like we
Moon
talk
Raccoons is
about
gonna
Moon
get picked
Raccoons.
apart. It's like they're from Australia.
Well, this is just the way it works, unfortunately. Like
Yeah.
you're going to see all these teams get picked apart. All these teams who are like currently fighting for, you know, getting their full 5 signed, they're just going to get plucked. So I could
Right.
see Fiend getting picked up and put in that team. I could see Harmful coming in, Koala Noob, who plays for Big Frames. There's a couple different options for them. Fiend, in my mind, is the most obvious. And if Profi is potentially joining Cloud9, I think that ultimately kills Moon Raccoons. I think the team pretty much dies, and you'll see each player go their separate ways, and find opportunities elsewhere.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
It's a great story, man. Everyone wants to see a team like Moon Raccoons like follow that Dignitas Echo Fox kind of route where like all the pals get to stay together and an ambiguous NBA billionaire or multimillionaire comes in and, you know, sets you up because his kid like esports. You know, everyone wants to see that. But ultimately it's going to be like any other team that has got some talent and some promise. It's going to be like just a bunch of rabid raccoons going through a dumpster, picking up all the good parts and leaving everybody else behind. Shout out to all those people that I just call trash. Anyway, so we also have TNL Esports acquiring Quantum Strikers. This is just a pickup, I guess. Like they just bought it. They just bought the team.
Yeah, just like a change of or Quantum Strikers is in the main event, so they probably just ended up kind of selling the naming rights and just a organizational switch, nothing with the roster.
There you go. Glad to see it.
The roster actually changed just prior to that. So the roster, they picked up 2 players and swapped them in, and that's when they ended up qualifying, and then they got.
I see. We also have an interesting story actually coming from Malaysia and Singapore. Now, this is very interesting. So, Paper Rex, they did qualify for First Strike, released their entire roster We have reason to believe that certain individuals on our Valorant roster were involved with activities that go against the meaning of fair competition and integrity of an esports professional, i.e., they did something fucking greasy, either cheating or otherwise, and they released the whole roster. And here's another quote: in light of recent information, we have reason to believe that certain individuals on our Valorant roster were involved with activities that go against the meaning of fair competition and integrity. Definitely cheating, Buck.
I mean, so here's the question: is what kind of cheating did they do? Were they stream sniping? Were they like actually
They're not gonna
actively
tell you.
cheating? Like I
Oh,
want to know
yeah.
the dirty details because we already saw players get banned for actively cheating during tournaments. You know, you look at a player like Fox or Weak was another one, if I'm not mistaken. Those players got banned for cheating. Like, you know, we have that happening already. So what did they do? Give us the juice. Don't just like tease us with this. That's ridiculous.
So is the team actually still going to continue to play?
That would be bold.
Well, no, didn't they mention like the org was like, well, you know, wait, we're out, we're not, but like it doesn't say that the team is not going to. Like, how do you have a statement like this come out and then be like, yeah, no, they're good to compete? Like there seems to be like huge red flags here. Like the org is literally out because there are so many. Uh, what happens with this? Because there's 2 days. You know.
If they just end up going and playing in it, I imagine there will be a competitive ruling either right before, like tomorrow, or bad things will happen. I really don't know what's. I mean, there really is only one right answer of what they should do, which is remove the team and bring up the next closest replacement, I guess. But then there's the question of like who lost to them. You know how cheating is like the poison apple, man. Like you just never know how many different people are touched by selfishness of this kind. But at the very least, at least Paper Rex, has some integrity, and we're like, get the F out of here. So at least they have that going for them, at least, if not causing a massive amount of problems. We also have one last story, which is not really a roster move, maybe, but ZywOo did show up on a Valorant roster very briefly, a French Valorant roster. Now, for those of you who have no idea who ZywOo is, arguably one of the what can we say, top 3 CS players, top 5?
I would say top 2. I think it's
Top 2.
between him and Simple. They're like the 2 best CS players in the world. I got to watch ZywOo play his first LAN, and it was like he's been doing it for years. He is just a monster.
Well,
That's clean.
he was owning, which does not shock me. So ZywOo moving to Valorant would be like Michael Jordan going to baseball, in my opinion. So I really cannot imagine that happening, but
Yeah.
you never know, dude. You never know.
You're gonna have to explain who Michael Jordan is now to all of the chat, because
Yeah.
a lot of these young guns. It's a good thing that documentary came out, because otherwise I think they'd have no clue.
Obviously, you haven't been watching this podcast or any of my other broadcasts where I just force like vague basketball references on people and assume that they'll understand it.
Yeah.
Michael Jordan going to baseball is like okay, whatever. I'm not going down this rabbit hole.
I did see one thing that's interesting that popped up after we started, but with the tournament in 2 days, they had issues with Killjoy on the live server, which they've disabled Killjoy, but you can't practice with Killjoy in custom games. So teams can't use Kill because they're playing on the previous patch for the main event, like the one that's kind of stable. They can't practice with Killjoy at all 2 days out. That for me is a little bit of an issue. It would have been nice for the bug not to happen, but at least give them the option to turn her back on in custom games. She's just disabled in the whole game.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that it's just like one hand not talking to the other type of thing,
Yeah.
We got to turn this off. They're like, okay, turn it off. And then everyone's like, hey, we need to practice for the first strike thing. Like, oh shit, we forgot about the esports people. So yeah, that is a problem. So speaking of things being turned off and on, some things that have been turned on recently is Icebox and Skye. So Icebox and Skye now both being available in tournaments. Most recently, or actually the most current one that will be using both, I believe, is the Nerd Street Gamers Monthly Invitational. Bach, is this going to be the first tournament where we see Icebox and Skye in competition?
So that actually ran over the weekend. That we ran a monthly event this last weekend, and we saw Icebox played 10 times, which was once more than Split, which played 9 total times across the event. So there was actually a propensity to play the map by a couple of teams. Equinox and Anbox, excuse me, 2 teams that I think really liked playing the map. They each played it 4 times. So there are teams who are going to be picking this map, especially over a map like Split, which is kind of it's weird. Split's got some interesting duality. If you look at the high level, it's played a lot more than maybe like a map like Bind, which teams have just gotten sick of. But now Icebox comes in and it's got this really peculiar map layout. The map in general feels very large. It completely changes the mold for what we're used to when it comes to competitive maps. And I think over time we'll probably see teams play it more and more. There's always that adoption period. And again, I think that's something that's also affecting Skye is that adoption period is going to take time. Look at Killjoy when she was released or Reyna when she came out. There weren't many players playing Killjoy or Reyna competitively. It took a little bit of time for people to figure out how that slots into like their workflows and their team compositions. And I think Icebox is going to be the same. I wouldn't expect to see it played a whole lot throughout First Strike, but you'll see it in more of like the community events, more of the stuff like we do at Nerd Street or other open events like that.
I think that at least from what I've seen on Twitter, and maybe Matt can echo some of this, is that players are starting to come around on Icebox. But I imagine that now that it's kind of forced upon them, for lack of a better term, just the ability to avoid it out of discomfort is no longer an option. Do you think that's why we're starting to see the sentiments change?
Yeah, I mean teams are gonna pick it, right? It seems like I know teams that like Viper or playing some Viper, kind of like this map. So you're going to see teams play it. You can't really avoid it, right? Whether you love it or not, you're gonna have to play it in some capacity. And having some success on the map will change your opinion on it rather quickly, right? So I think you'll start to see teams like look at this and say, well, is it the lesser of two evils versus like Split, right? If we have to play one of the two, and maybe opt to go more towards Icebox. I think to get like the sentiment going the other way again, like where it's a little bit more of the negative output on things. I know if a team loses like a really close like decider on it, where both teams aren't really feeling the map,
trash.
yeah, you'll start to see things kind of go the other direction. But I think this will happen when they're going to push the boundaries of like what a tactical shooter is. You're gonna get these types of reactions out of people constantly. So I don't think it's anything that they're going to a knee jerk reaction to and make big changes. They're gonna let it play out a bit and see what happens.
Let's also think too. You look at the map. How is it more likely to get the changes we want to see in it as a competitive map? It has to actually enter competitive play. I look at other first-person shooters, and I even look at maps in Valorant throughout the beta stage, and the way the changes came through was because it was played enough that they could really get a proper sample size and figure out what needed to get fixed. Like I'm looking at like a game like Counter-Strike. I spent years working in CS. Overpass was a trash map when it first came out. Now it's one of my favorite maps, but it took multiple revisions changing the map. It doesn't even look like the map it once was. It has the basic structure, but a lot has changed. I think ultimately we'll see that with a lot of the maps is Riot is being um, very community oriented. They're really listening to the player base, not just us at home, but also the pro players, which is awesome. So ultimately, what we see, if we do see it played through First Strike, it'll probably look completely different 6 months from now. We'll see a lot of changes made to the map to try and adjust and find some of the weaknesses and just kind of fix those. And that's not even factoring any potential bugs that they're going to find along the way as well.
Icebox to me is the only issue that I find is just the wide peaking kind of gameplay that doesn't really fit with, I guess, online play. Like if you guys remember what it was like when early on in Valorant, where they were having some net code kind of things where you could swing out and be dead in one shot, where it looks like the person never stops moving. That to me, if that was still like a major problem, that's where Icebox would be I guess more painful. But it's not. It won't be as badly. Won't be as bad, I should say, once we get on the LAN, which is where the game really does change. So I would love to see some LAN competition, wouldn't we all? But especially around a map like Icebox, where it's where latency and other issues of that kind aren't really in the discussion, and then we'll start to see the very pointed type of feedback. But the more we see it in competition, Skye included, we will start to see where they kind of fall in the adoption rates. But right now they don't have a choice. So get out there, play your Skye, play your Icebox, and maybe we'll start to see some more positivity from the pros on Twitter. So yeah, we'll see. Icebox to me is still it still reminds me of Volskaya mixed with the op map that can't remember what it was called. It was CS Winter, or the one where with like the honeycomb shape where the guns were on both sides. It was in Winter. Anyone?
Oh,
Anybody?
you're not. It's not an op map though. That's just a gun map. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh,
gun
why
map.
am I blanking?
That's
I
what I'm
should know
saying.
this.
It's like I spent 45 hours a week on that as a teenager. Ice
Snow
World.
Day?
Ice World.
Ice World.
Ice World,
I don't know
wow.
why I couldn't think. I was thinking Pool Day, which was another one of those maps. I always
Yeah.
like Pool Day more. As you can tell, I've got a body built for pools and speed. So I always liked Pool Day a little bit more. Sorry.
Back in 2002, I bet that body was even more gristled and
Oh, it was beautiful.
Yeah, chiseled. Anyway, let's talk about our predictions. So last week, Bach, myself, Matt, and Valley put our predictions out for First Strike, and I don't think they were too outlandish. So I guess at this stage you're gonna have to be critiquing ours. So let's take a look at the first one. I'm not sure. Am I first? I can't remember. Let's take a look. You're absolutely right, but I still want to see the predictions. We'll come back. I promise.
I think well, I think we didn't know the okay, so yeah, this is my bracket first. So I had
Matt
Envy in the
picked
final.
Envy.
Yeah.
Looking at the bracket, Bach, what do you think?
I mean, I think a lot of people expected Envy to do really well. So that's not entirely surprising. A lot of the teams were actually praising Envy, saying that Envy was potentially like one of the best teams in the bracket. So that was during the qualifier portion. So I mean, I hope we get that final. I hope we get TSM Sentinels at some point. But looking at the early stage, TSM versus Renegades, I think that Renegades does potentially get blown out of the water there. Envy versus Immortals, I think Envy's the stronger team. 100 Thieves T1 is probably the best starting game in the quarterfinals. I think that one has the possibility to go either direction, but I do think that it's right. 100 Thieves comes through, and then Sentinels. I don't think 100 Thieves beats Sentinels. I think Sentinels is going to crush them. I think Envy does beat TSM. So I think ultimately we do get Envy in the finals against Sentinels, and I think Sentinels takes it in the end. But I do think that you're right everywhere else. I just don't see 100 Thieves being able to beat Sentinels, just because 100 Thieves is still improving. They're still on the upswing, and they're only going to get better. I actually think that 100 Thieves has the potential to be the best team in North America. They just need time.
This is my prediction. I think this is I don't know if this is in line with what you were just kind of talking about, but I really don't see. I picked T1 to beat 100 Thieves just for the love of the game, but I could easily see, regardless of who comes into the semifinals against Sentinels, I think Sentinels goes to the finals and eventually takes it overall. That's basically where I was going with my predictions, but I just wanted to do something that was fun.
So for now, SEMO should look away because TSM is losing in the finals, according to Moses. So SEMO, cover your eyes. I think you're pretty spot on with that. I think I can see a world where TSM doesn't make the finals. I can see a world where they do, but they fall short. I can see a world where they win. I think those last couple of games are more coin tosses than they are definites, whereas the early stage games are a little bit easier to predict. So there is a very real possibility that TSM doesn't even make it to the finals. I think that Envy has the potential to beat them. Envy played so good during the qualifier portion, and teams were legitimately scared of them. I'm sure if you asked someone from TSM, they would tell me that I'm being crazy and they'd call me an asshole for going against them. But sorry, guys, like that's just what I think.
Who cares what they think? Let's just pick our teams and I just tell them to shut up. I pick my predictions just like you do. And let's all pick apart Valley's predictions here. Let's
let's just trash Valley's predictions while he's not here.
Let's take a look at. Do we have Valley's available? I'm not sure if we have his ready.
He had
no.
He had Renegades T1 final, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think he had Renegades T1. I think.
Oh I really can't imagine Renegades and T1 in the finals. But hey, listen, Veli, at least he'll be able to watch it live, right? We'll watch his predictions come apart live with him on broadcast.
Chad, you didn't have that. Somebody was like, "Wait, what? He picked that?" Like, no.
Yeah, we can just he had we can just make up all sorts of things about his predictions since we don't have them. We also have maybe some predictions for EU. I don't know if we actually did this.
No, we didn't do that last time.
Let's take a look at the bracket. Maybe we can do it right now.
EU, I think, will be harder than NA. I think almost, just because. I mean,
oh right. Let me just take a quick look here. Okay, team. Oh yeah, G2 wins it all. I think that's my prediction.
Well, I think
Spot on.
I mean, G2 Orgless will be a pretty good game. Round 1. I think FPX has a very good chance with how they've been trending to be able to win, to be able to take out a team like G2. I think G2 is still strong enough to get by Liquid in like
basically
a semifinal.
Just take everybody on the left side of the quarterfinals screen and then shuffle them over to semifinals, and then everything will be fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think your prime set up for a G2 FPX final.
Ooh, yeah.
And potentially, I think that's when that FPX wins.
I think G2 Liquid in the semifinal is the matchup that will be the marquee, and then obviously you'll have FPX G2 would make sense. Bach, what are your thoughts?
I think Liquid actually gets knocked out in the first round. I think Heretics wins in a 3-map series. I think it's really close, but I think Heretics is going to surprise people with that first map or that first series. So they're going to actually be playing in the semifinals, and then they'll get blown out at that point. I think that it is more than likely G2 and Fun Plus Phoenix in the finals. I think G2 takes it. I want to say that Fun Plus can, but I feel like G2 is just going to play on a completely different level than we've seen them play on already.
I can't imagine any team beating G2 3 times right now. That's tough. And I really to kind of talk about Liquid, there's this sense with the team over time, obviously with their results, and didn't have the same rocket fuel success that G2 has had, that a loss here against Heretics in First Strike in the opening round would almost necessitate further roster changes. What do you think about that, Bach?
I think that if anyone loses in the first round, you're going to see roster changes. I don't think it matters which team it's going to be. I think that everyone has a roster change. I think if it's a team like Liquid or G2, G2 is probably the only team that's immune. I think that G2's done enough that if something were to happen, it'd be like, whatever. Yeah, we didn't make it. That sucks, but we're still really good and largely considered the best team in Europe, so it doesn't really make too much of a difference. But any of the other teams, they're going to be seeing some roster changes. Maybe the only exception is Purple Cobras, because I don't think anyone thought that would be the team we'd have here. Purple Cobras is not like some massive brand or some huge team in Europe. So ultimately, like, they get a free pass. They're like the team that was like, whoa, we actually made it this far. That's awesome. Good job, everybody. And if they fail here, it's like, well, at least we got to this point. Whereas everyone else on this list has something to prove.
It's like the European Moon Raccoons.
Exactly.
All right, so we have further predictions, and we also have some feedback, except these ones come from Reddit, but we're not going to talk about those right now. We're going to save that juicy tidbit until after the break. So if you want to hear Reddit's opinions on Riot, as well as Valorant, as well as the new announced Valorant Masters and Championship Series, I cannot wait to see what Reddit has to say. But we'll be back in just a couple of minutes. Don't get anywhere. We'll be back with more Valoranting just in a few minutes. Welcome back to Valoranting. I'm WTF Moses, joined by Matt and Bach, and we'll be talking about predictions, specifically about First Strike. But what we needed, and what we always need, is Reddit's opinion. And what we talked about last week, obviously, was the reactions both on this show and across the Valorant community to the Valorant Champions announcement. And here's some reactions from Reddit. Are we blanking out the names now? Come on, bro. We got to at least have those in there. I can't even, like, normally the names are the best part. Like, I'm going to call this guy Swaglord69 underscore 420XX. Says, fuck yes. Could not be more excited for this. Bold predictions time so I can look back and laugh next year. FPX to win Champions Final. Vision Strikers place top 3. and top placing NA team is 100 Thieves. Okay, that seems fine. He's putting some predictions, so we can come back later. And we have what's this guy's name? Osu player 99 underscore Tifa says, I'll make a deal with you if the top 10 isn't majority Western, and or if the global champion is Azane, I'll donate 50 to the charity of your choice, and you do the same for me otherwise. Okay.
Look,
Um
we play WoW all day,
right.
which some could say is a waste of time.
Right.
This is a bigger waste of time than that. This is like, it's predicting things we don't even know the format. You don't even know if half of these teams will still be around.
I'm trying to work out the exact terms of this bet. If the top 10 isn't majority Western, and or if the global champion is Asian, I think I'll donate 50 somethings to the charity of your choice, and you do the same for me otherwise, question mark?
Yeah.
Bach, do you have any translation here? You read
Well,
Reddit.
I think I like
Oh.
Nipple Chafe 77's response of sure thing. That was
Chafe.
awesome. This is just classic Reddit. I like the double use of the articles as well. If the
Yeah.
misspelling Asian, not putting a capital letter on it, 50 in a currency or a point system that we're unaware of. There's just a whole lot to unpack here.
Also, don't most like with the qualification, aren't we bound to get more Western teams than every other region? Like all the other like the bet would already be over. Like just by the format.
We'll have to get the authorities involved here. I'm sure we'll have to figure out what state this person lives in, or country, or what have you, and we'll get the relevant authorities involved for this gambling. We have one more, and the last one is always the best. Okay. Bucket Hat 22 says, "Oh shit, oh fuck, oh shit, oh god, oh fuck."
I assume he's excited.
I think so. Maybe
he was getting robbed when he typed that out. So he
Yeah,
originally
he-
had like a really good, thoughtful response, and then he had to edit it as the person was breaking through the door.
Oh, I kind of thought he was in like Habbo Hotel, just maybe in some private chat room somewhere, just anyway.
Dream Daddy Simulator.
Dream Daddy Simulator, exactly. So Reddit always, oh man, they got stuff. There's some things happening over there. Who knows anymore?
Never
So
change.
we've been talking about First Strike a lot, and obviously Oceania is still going on, or is they've got their region as well to sort out. And now we have this topic only because of the insane format for whatever this for the Rise of Valor group stage. In comparison to the best of one grind that is Europe, can you explain to me how this particular tournament works?
Well, to be truthful, I'm not entirely sure because it's so complex. I think one of the biggest missteps potentially from Riot when it came to First Strike is the fact that there was no format. It was just kind of like, whatever you want
Do
to
what
do.
you like.
Like,
Get out
it's
there.
fine. You want to do Swiss? That's fine. You can do Swiss. GSL, that's cool too. BO1, single elim playoffs. 2 days of 128 team open bracket play. Like, it's just whatever they wanted to do. And I think that was a misstep from Riot, as it kind of caused a lot of concerns over, one, competitive integrity, and two, like, if you qualified for one, was that potentially easier than qualifying for the other because of the way they handled the format? I don't really like the way they did that. I'm not one who usually goes after Riot, but this was just kind of a massive misstep. I feel like they should have provided a little bit of guidance here.
Yeah, the formats are all over the place. It made it extremely difficult to follow in multiple regions.
Exactly.
I gave up. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
I just couldn't keep up anymore. I was like, okay,
well,
I don't know what.
It's a lot of Valorant 1, right? You're looking at potentially following, like, if you follow NA, EU, APAC, and then Brazil, right? You're looking at following 4 200 plus team tournaments that go on at the same kind of time, not time of day, but like within the same weekend days. And and then now you're trying to piece together these different formats for how it became very, very difficult. We made a joke about Sideshow earlier, but working with Josh, like a lot of he has a really good stream, does really well. But like sometimes he doesn't get to stream because he's so flooded with trying to keep up with all of these different regions and the games that are going on because it's also hard to find the games at times. So you got to go searching through it. You got to see where it is. You got to find out if it's the actual match you need.
Is it in English? Can I watch it?
It's they've like that's the one thing I think we've talked about at length, like where they kind of missed with First Strike, right? Where it should have been a really easy barrier to entry to get people into Valorant esports. But because of the different formats and kind of everything involved, it actually became very difficult to follow.
I agree. And for Oceania, obviously it's an important region because we have to find out which team is going to be picked apart like the poor moon raccoons by North American teams after this is all over. So let's take a look at the participants, the finalists here. We have Exo Clan, Direwolves, Avant Gaming, Order, Mind Freak, Wildcard Gaming, appearing randomly in Australia. What the heck? That's a North American org. Gravitas and Legacy Esports. Where the F did Wildcard come from? Or what are they doing in Australia? They must have moved their offices from Pawnee, Indiana, over to someplace in Australia. Interesting. So, Bach, do you have any insight on the Australian region for us? What do you got for us here?
Yeah. So, my time working at ESCA managing Rank G and Rank S means I knew a lot of these guys. I worked with some of these guys. There are a bunch of semi-pro CS players for the most part when you look at the region. There's players obviously coming in from other areas, but it is a lot of semi-pro CS. The two most interesting pieces are Exo Clan, who's probably the best team in the region right now, but being caught up to by Order, who has a ton of CS firepower. They've got Dick Stacy and Tux, who I've personally covered throughout my years casting CS when they were playing with a variety of different rosters. That team's got a ton of firepower. On the other side, Exo Clan actually considering moving to the United States or relocating either to Europe. They've spoken to Riot and to their org, and they have the opportunity there to try and relocate if there's the financial backing to do so. And we've seen that already happen in Oceania because let's be real, the opportunities just aren't there as much for Oceania.
The ecosystem doesn't support it.
It sucks. So like players don't get paid nearly as much money as they think they're worth. The opportunities are minimal. So
internet sucks balls.
Oh, the internet infrastructure in Australia is terrible. You think, oh, you've got major cities like Melbourne and Sydney, sure, but when you get outside of that, there's just large swaths of land separating people, and the country is freaking huge. Like, I don't think people realize just how large Australia actually is. So, two players who live in Australia, it's like playing East Coast to West Coast. So, like, it can be pretty bad. Like, you can have like 140 ping.
Yeah.
How big? How many total meters is Australia?
I believe Australia, like a landmass. I should know this since my wife is Australian. I believe it's like about the same size as like almost like the US, like in terms of like actual land. But it's got about the population of like Florida. So imagine like if like the population of Florida was just
and the
spread
same
out
type
over
of citizens, just
the United States. But to Bach's point, I mean the internet is ridiculous. Like somebody in Sydney trying to connect to Perth, like from one side of the country to the other, it's way worse than like an NA East Coast to West Coast. Your 60 ping, 70 ping in that regard. Like this is like you're at a few hundred. Where most of the time Australian players they typically will just find like a dedicated Sydney host, and everybody just kind of lags their way onto that, as that's like the fairest option.
We have the best. We have the best. Hold on a second. We have the best producers in the game here, and Ian just posted some hot Australia facts in our Discord.
Oh,
United States is approximately 9,833,517 square meters, while Australia is approximately 7,741,220 square meters, making Australia 78.72% the size of the United States. Meanwhile, the population of the United States is 332.6 million. 307.2 million fewer people live in Australia.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm saying square kilometers instead of.
So it's
meters,
like
so it's actually
80% of the
significantly larger than I let on.
Yeah, it's like 80% of the US, and then
1,000 times bigger than I said.
about 20 something million people live there, right? So
Yeah, 20 million is not a lot of people. I mean, you'd think that Australian people would be hard to find, but if you're in esports, they're all over the place. So
I loved Australia. This is completely off topic. I've been to Australia 4 times.
wow, boastful.
I love it. It's great because there's nobody around. I think one thing I've learned even from COVID and I've learned from COVID is that like I don't really enjoy people that much. I think like being in isolation and
oh yeah,
I enjoy a small amount of people. So I think a place like Australia fits me perfectly.
where you could walk for like miles and be like, I don't think there's any other people. But in Mad Max, like they're all over they're all over each other. I guess they're probably all crowded around certain resources.
They film Mad Max in Australia.
I know that.
Were you in the movie?
It's set in Australia.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I had no clue.
That's why.
Look, I don't really look that deep into things, Moses. I just kind of see on the surface level. I don't really go that deep. I know it was filmed in Australia, because it was filmed near like where my wife used to live, but I didn't know it was actually set in Australia. That makes way more sense.
Australian. Mel Gibson's Australian.
You learn something every day here on VALORANTing, you know? This week we've learned don't have multiple region formats for all different things and put them on at the same time. And that Mad Max was Australian.
And set in Australia. And
it was set in Australia. Yeah, maybe he wasn't Australian, but it was set in Australia.
No, he is Australian.
Do we know for sure?
Yeah, I'm setting it in the stone. I'm 99.9% sure Mel Gibson's Australian and racist. So let's talk about Japan. We also have the qualifiers done. Oh yeah, he definitely says he is best known for being Australian here. Perfect. Excellent.
He is, but he's American born Australian, so he wasn't really from Australia.
He's Australian. It says right here. Ian's pointing it in there. Just ignore what he's putting in caps. It says Australian.
He's not telling the truth. He's not.
Yeah, he's just a goddamn liar. So we also
show's all rigged to get me. You know, everything's rigged nowadays.
I'm actually Australian too. I'm not sure if I let that on, but so we have he was born in Peekskill, Australia. Okay, interesting. We have
you're just making things up.
The Japanese qualifier. I've never been wrong about anything in my life. How dare you? Sengoku Gaming, Detonation Gaming, Reject, and Blackbird Ignis are the guys that made it through. Really, the only people we're interested in. Where's the raccoon logo? Bring it up. It's got to be in here somewhere.
I think it's Crazy Raccoon.
Crazy Raccoon, which the logo does not scale that well. You can make out the raccoon, but you're missing out on the Statue of Liberty and many other things that are in that logo. Blackbird Ignis's logo also looks like nothing now compared to what it was beforehand. I wish we had that, but you know what, Bach, you've been nailing all these random regions I don't watch. So tell me about the Japanese teams.
All right. Well, in Japan, it's definitely a little bit interesting because they don't get as much light shined on them as maybe like Korea. So when you look at the early matchups, Detonation and Fave is probably going to be the closest game. Absolute Jupiter is the best team by far. Potentially the best team in Southeast Asia as a whole, depending on who you ask. They should blow Sengoku out of the water. Scars and Reject have played more recently. That should be a potentially close game. And then Blackbird, Ignis, and Crazy Raccoon. I do miss the old Blackbird Ignis logo, or compared to what is on screen right now, it looked like a Ed Hardy tattoo. It was really interesting. It's like two.
You know what Ed Hardy's tattoos look like? Oh, right, the actual Ed Hardy. Or dang, Ed Hardy. I forgot about that.
It looks
like 2007.
It looks like an amateur brewing company's logo because I think there's like a beer in the background and there's like a peacock kissing a phoenix. I can't really tell what's going on, but there's a lot. Yeah, the old Blackbird.
Oh no,
Ignis.
the Ignis is a raven wearing a crown, going up against a phoenix with chains and spray paint in the background. Really, I don't know. You're right. It does actually fit the Ed Hardy tattoo / biker Facebook meme logo aspect. Daniel, can we pull it up? Ian put it in the. We have a guy we need Jesus Pieces has not seen the Statue of Liberty component of the crazy right. There
Yeah,
it is.
there it is.
Pause. Go back.
Yeah, we need we need to cover the important things like the logo
Yeah.
design of the region. Yeah.
There you
There it
go.
is. There
This is
it
incredible.
Many things. Walk us through it, Matt.
What is the sea? It's just like it's not even like I mean,
It's
you
like
would
a paper clip.
yeah, it's like a
Crazy.
paper clip. It feels like they use like a little bit of like
Paper
paint
clip.
in there. And why do Valorant teams make names with raccoons? Like, what is so funny about the animal of a raccoon that they're like, yeah, sure, let's be the moon raccoons, the crazy raccoons. Like, it's just, and this one doesn't even make any sense. He's just a Statue of Liberty as an
Whoever
animal.
it is really down with the gradient tool. That's
Yeah.
all I can tell. Like,
It
there's a
looks
lot of
like-
gradients.
It looks like a logo someone would have painted on the side of their speedboat circa 1983. Like it's just got a real interesting vibe.
A
to it.
Blackbird Ignis looks just as good though. I mean, look at
Yeah.
that one.
It's like a it's like tails versus a bird. I don't know what's going on.
It's
but
like somebody just went wild, like, and was like, how many
We need
things
cha-
can I add to this? Like, oh, we'll add like the blackbird thing in the back, and then we'll put two birds, and we'll put chains, and we'll make them different color gradients. So let's throw a crown on this. Like, they just like threw everything at it until they probably ran out of assets, and we're just like, yeah, well, this is it. Like,
or the designer was like just taking everything the client wanted straight to heart. Like, so what do you want this logo to look like? Well, I kind of want a bird, and we also identify with multi-tailed foxes. We want to have a shield in there because we're protecting things. I like face paint. I also like crowns and chains. I like the X-Men. If we could get the X-Men logo in there as well somehow. And I like the color red and blue and white and yellow
Yeah,
and orange.
I get tramp stamp vibes from that one.
yeah,
I don't even know, dude. That looks like that looks like something you would see on the back pocket of jeans
Yeah,
on like some like very trendy, like, yeah, we only made 17 pairs of these jeans and they're $9,000 a pair.
there's
It's the
like a lot of
Blackbird Ignis
rivets.
jeans.
Just
Yeah, a lot of
rivets
rivets.
you
everywhere.
can't even read the Ignis. You can barely see it.
And
Yeah, this
make
is
it pop.
and make the logo pop. Yep, they did it. How
like it.
how are teams like Absolute Jupiter supposed to be able to compete with Blackbird,
Yeah, the logo game is,
Ignis, and Crazy Raccoons when the logo game is just so? I mean, it's very
and then
classy,
look at Fam
right?
Gaming
Very
on top of there, just
clean.
like we're looking for a mid 90s roller rink aesthetic.
Yeah.
Yeah, we want the smell of bowling shoes to come out of our logo.
Yeah, it is very bowler-esque, right? Gaming.
This is what we talk about when none of us have watched any of the games from Japan.
Yeah. Well, this is one region that when you decide to try and follow multiple regions, it's hard to put the time in to follow Japan. I think, like Bach mentioned, like it's one region that doesn't get a lot of love. This is one region I think I have had difficulty, like, even just finding the games as a whole. So this is one
Yeah.
that's just kind of fallen by the wayside. But it's super cool that they're committed to all these different regions. They just need to figure out a way to make it digestible for everybody else who wants to follow this type of stuff.
I think that the logos specifically are a major. You know what, the commentary in Japan as well. If you want to watch the games, you got to watch them early morning so they can wake you up, because the commentary for Japanese FPS games is so over the fucking top when it comes to like it's like Korea and Japanese have the hype dial turned to 11 at all times. Doesn't matter what's happening. But I can't wait to see. I want to see everybody in a LAN, dude. If there's First Strike is teaching me one thing, is that we need to start mixing the streams here. We got to get everybody under the same roof. Hopefully once we're past this pandemic bullshit, we can have that Ricky tick. I want to take, and I know we did this already, but I do want to go very quickly over our predictions one more time. We don't have Veli's predictions, which is unfortunate, but we do have ours. So just to be very clear, Matt is picking Envy to beat Immortals, TSM to beat Renegades, 100 Thieves to beat T1, which of course Sentinels beating FaZe Clan. That's a pretty. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a pretty goddamn safe bet right there.
Yeah, I went. I would assume this is kind of like fairly safe up until maybe like 100 Thieves over Sentinels, and then I think you could make an argument TSM over Envy. I just feel better about where Envy is as a team and the trajectory of that team at the moment.
I agree, but I don't agree on my predictions.
You agree, but let's look at your predictions where you explicitly don't agree with me.
Yeah, that's true. I take TSM over Envy. I take T1 over 100 Thieves because why the fuck not? And Sentinels over FaZe Clan because FaZe Clan just doesn't seem to have. If there's one team in the quarterfinals that I feel bad because I like the team. All their guys seem really nice and all that, which is normally preceded by a big old but they just don't seem to be. They're not. I don't think they're in quite the same level as Sentinels in any sense. But who knows? Anything can happen, man. It's one match.
Yeah.
And especially at the quarterfinals, you never know what can happen, dude. And the same thing goes for T1. Maybe there's some sort of like dazed rather Brax AZK kind of superhuman dig deep. We have to beat Steel because he broke up our party that we were gonna have in Valorant. Maybe that's it. You know what? I also like to point out, based on the fact that all our graphics are either MS Paint or just a single just a red box. They didn't even check the size of the pixels to make the box. We are hiring a graphics design artist for DNP. So make sure you guys go on to the Twitter at twitter.com/DNP.
Well, here's what needs to happen.
Right.
We need to have whether it's like Jason or Scott or somebody needs to reach out to Blackbird Ingus and say, who made your guys' logo? And then we need them to make a special edition, Valoranting logo.
Oh my God.
Birds, raccoons, clowns. We need chains. Yeah, we need squirrels.
School bus. I want a school bus in there too.
Yeah, school bus. Like they need to just go wild with it. That's what really needs to happen. And then they can get a graphic design.
And we really want it to pop. We really want to make it pop.
Yep,
that's important.
Vibrant and pop.
How about some patriotism? Like we have crazy raccoons with the Statue of Liberty. Do we get like, I don't know,
and the red, white, and blue gradients on the stars and stuff? I don't.
Perfect.
I mean,
yep.
I don't really know why. I want to know who. I just want to talk to the guy who made the logo. Be like, what was your inspiration for this? And aside from like going into a New York gift shop and seeing a raccoon on the street,
what did you drink before?
Yeah. LSD, just pure LSD.
Run me through your day.
Yeah. I was under the sink trying to fix it, and all the chemicals were mixing together, and the vision just came to me.
Oh man, here we go.
It is.
There's only one way to do it.
Raccoons also only have 3 talons, as I've learned. It's got a raptor hand.
Yeah, he's got a little, a little raptor hand.
I love the stars that are just on the side. Like there's just so many. And the gradient around the stroke gradient around the side of the raccoon.
It's just legendary.
Also red, white, and blue. It follows it the whole way. Wow, amazing. I would love to see. It would be even better if the tail had like blood dripping off of it, like it was a stinger or something like that.
It's just ridiculous. Like the red, white, and blue gradient, and then just like the big green raccoon.
Hold on. I got a great line from the chat. I drank a Blackbird Ignis, and this is what I came up with.
Oh, I see. Veli was in the chat. He must have climbed out of his big money pit.
Oh yeah,
he finally got out.
Sorry,
yeah.
I was on my first strike show meeting. I had to come in and just make sure how my podcast I skipped was doing all right.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't be on the show. I'm just flying around in circles in a private jet right now.
Yeah. Lots going on with first strike, which I'm doing, by the way. Anyway, so
Huge McVelly.
Well, that's going to do it for us this week. We've covered everything. Obviously, we're all waiting for First Strike to start next week. We're going to have the First Strike reaction special, which is what the show is going to be. So make sure you're following us on Twitter, twitter.com/DNPeak. You follow us here at twitch.tv/DNPeak and on YouTube, everywhere where you can also get the podcast wherever podcasts are found. For myself, Matt, and Bach, it's been an absolute pleasure. Gentlemen, we'll see you next week for the First Strike reaction show. Bach, I hope you have a great weekend watching every single game that exists. And we hope to have you back. Thanks for being here, dude.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a blast.
Matt, I'll see you in the dungeons, okay?
Yes.
What are we saying, like an hour or so?
Yeah.
Well, how much time you need?
Ouroboros. Yeah, we'll meet up. I probably need a bit, but yeah, no, I'll play some and then just I'm gonna need to sleep because after going through all the schedules of like games starting at like 8 a.m. and then running till 2 and then starting again at 2, like I need some sleep to get ready for this week. Actually,
you're actually off the raid team. So anyway,
Okay.
we're gonna that's gonna do it for us. We'll see you guys next week. Have a great week, everyone. Thanks for watching.